Every experience is positive because we learn something. And, it's a cliche that you learn more from your failures than from your successes, but absolutely, you have to fail in order to succeed. You have to fail and learn where you went wrong, where you can be better. If we always succeed, we never realize that we can get better.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Andy Crocker to the show. Now, as you'll hear, Andy has a really fascinating background. I'm pretty sure he's the first sort of like rocket engineer that we've ever had on the podcast. And so he'll tell you a little bit more about his background here at the very beginning. But really the majority of the conversation today centers around a book that he just released. In fact, on the day of we're recording it here is when it came out. So by the time this comes out, it would have been out for a little while. But what I thought I would do, I don't normally do this, but I pulled up the book on like Barnes and Nobles and I just want to sort of read, I won't read all of it, but I just want to read the introduction to the book. So it's 5 core values can help us live more fulfilled and successful lives no matter what's happening around us. So after spending 5 years leading a team competing against Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos to return humans to the moon, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that ended in heartbreak, aerospace engineer Andy Crocker found himself searching for what truly matters. That loss, coupled with the realization that his kids were nearly grown, sparked a desire to pass on the values he believes are essential for living a meaningful life. The Unconditionals is the result, a framework grounded in timeless principles to help anyone pursue personal fulfillment and well-being. So that's sort of a official explanation or description of the book. And so what we did on the podcast is we're sort of just dig into that a little bit. He gets more into the sort of the personal story and even on the emotional side, like what did it feel like to get so close and then sort of like not win? Because, most people don't come into a podcast and talk about how they've lost and what they learned about it. So I really appreciated that. And just a really good, deep in conversation. And I really appreciated his openness and his honesty and even his vulnerability. So really, really good stuff. So show notes can be found over at gembapodcast.com. Just look for episode 582. Again, gembapodcast.com and look for episode 582. Okay, enough for me. Let's get to the show. Andy, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Great. Ron, thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Where are you calling in from?
Huntsville, Alabama.
All right. Roll Tide or?
I'm non-committal.
Okay.
I didn't go to either Alabama school, so I can cheer for both.
Okay.
It allows me to be a bandwagon fan and get away with it.
There you go. Well, I grew up in Ohio, so I'm a Buckeye, and I'm down in Texas, so it's not always easy down here, but
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, good stuff, man. Andy, we like to get all of our shows started with our guest and a quote. So do you have one?
I do. Yeah. And actually thought about, what your show is kind of about and found a quote that I think fits well with your show, but also kind of what I'll be talking about. So it's by William Faulkner, obviously American writer, Nobel Prize winner. And it's don't bother just to be better than your contemporaries or predecessors. Try to be better than yourself.
Yeah.
And obviously that's, a lot about don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't compare yourself to others. Worry about yourself. Try to be the best person you can be. And it's also clearly about always trying to be better, continuously improve, right? So both of those things are relevant.
That's hard to do though, isn't it?
It is. It's a constant, constant activity, constant striving, I think, through our whole lives.
They say comparison is the thief of joy or something like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, good stuff. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. Andy, tell us about your background, how you first got involved in all this continuous improvement stuff and what you're up to these days.
Yeah. So my background was in aerospace. I'm an aerospace engineer here in Huntsville, Alabama. We like to call it Rocket City, and I am a rocket scientist. So it's not that special here in Huntsville. You can't swing a stick without hitting a rocket scientist. But I know in other parts of the country, people are like, ooh, rocket science. But it's a great career. I've been doing it for 30 years and really been constantly working on space programs, whether it's NASA or commercial space or even defense space programs, which is getting more and more relevant today. So that's been a great career. It's been a lot of fun. The projects have been really fun, but I've also constantly been involved in leadership through my career and through things outside of work, and then constantly, I'm very interested in the humanities as well. So I like to write, and I like to read and learn new things. So always kind of dabbling in those things. But for me, continuous improvement, it's a big part of aerospace and defense. It's always a huge emphasis point, and I've certainly taken that to heart personally. It's just kind of part of who I am. So constantly working on ways that I can be better, and then especially recently thinking about how can I impart to my kids and maybe even to other people how we as people can be better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know as we were preparing for this conversation, you were sharing a pretty cool story. I don't know if I've ever, well, I'm positive in the many hundreds of episodes that we've had, I've not talked a lot about NASA. And I understand that, well, a few years ago that you had the opportunity to work on a NASA program, and perhaps you're going up against some folks people may have heard of, named like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and a few other notable folks. So what was going on with all of that? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, and it's interesting. Right now, it's almost exactly 2 years since that project ended for me. So it's definitely something I've thought a lot about. But a number of years before that, NASA decided that it was time to go back to the moon with humans. Obviously, it's been a long time, and when they made that announcement publicly, it had been almost 50 years since the last, really the first lunar lander, but almost since the last one as well. And I just thought that was an amazing project for a rocket scientist like me. It's the holy grail. Doing a crewed lunar lander, working on that is just the pinnacle. And so I jumped in. I convinced my company management to jump in, and we went after it. And we're lucky enough to play a role. And kind of coming out of nowhere, we were sort of an unknown. And as things evolved, we ended up competing directly against Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos's company, and SpaceX, Elon Musk's company. And the three of us were the three companies competing. So it was a little surreal. And as I say in my book, The Unconditionals, it felt like competing against those two individuals. It's daunting, but it was a thrilling opportunity, and the team just loved it. It was something where you dream about it, but when you're in the middle of it, it's all about how do you get better every day? How do you improve your design and improve the way that you sell it to NASA and all those things? And for us, unfortunately, it did have an end a couple of years ago, but the opportunity itself was amazing.
So, okay, to make sure I understand, were you able to participate, or you? Okay.
We did, yeah. So we had a contract with NASA. In fact, several contracts, and the way that it evolved,
so you beat Bezos and those guys, or
we didn't.
Were also in it?
We beat a number of other companies. There were Lockheed Martin and Boeing and other large companies and ones you've heard of and many you haven't, to get to the three companies, our company and the two others, and we all had large contracts to do the first steps of development of this lunar lander. And the way that NASA had it set up is you do this first step, and then you propose to move to the next. And that proposal involves, a multi-billion-dollar proposal, which, we submitted ours and the others submitted theirs, and NASA makes a determination. And the first time around, SpaceX won. And as I say in my book, they were able to include in their proposal a very large investment that SpaceX was capable of doing, and we weren't. So we didn't get to move on, but NASA decided they wanted a second competitor. So it was literally our company and Blue Origin competing head to head on contract, but competing for the next opportunity. And once again, we weren't able to invest quite as much money, and NASA selected Blue Origin, and SpaceX and Blue Origin are still under contract with NASA moving forward. But we weren't able to. But at the time, we were right in the thick of it, and building hardware and working with astronauts day to day. It was a fun ride.
So then what does that feel like, at the end of it when you ultimately didn't, get to proceed? Were you
Yeah.
ejected? Were you grateful? All of the above? Or
The first feeling is devastated, right? The first feeling is that that it could happen, and you try to prepare yourself mentally for that eventuality. But when it happens, you're never quite ready for it. So devastation, absolutely. And the way that those things happen when you have a big team, you're under a contract, you have literally hundreds of people working on it together. That team has to disperse. They all go work on other things because we don't have that contract anymore. So it's a little like a death in that you lose your friends, you lose your
yeah.
contract, you lose the energy and all those things over time. And in fact, a big part of now that I look back, a big part of getting over that was putting down on paper thoughts that I wanted to pass on, that really have to do with values. And at the time, I wasn't aware of it, but I realize now that it was losing that contract that made me think, okay, what's really important? What really matters? Yeah, this would have been cool, and it was a lot of fun when we did it, but is that really, that achievement really what matters? Is that really what I'm about? Is that what my legacy, so to speak, is? And I realized, no, it's about the values that I have and the values that I can pass along to my kids and maybe even share with other people that I come in contact with.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering, thanks for being transparent and vulnerable, even with a lot of people don't talk about when they lose. Right. So
Right.
super honorable of you to come on and talk about this, but I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about, after such a, devastating, loss, like what were like the key takeaways from that? Like, did it leave you better than you were, you think, or?
Yeah, I'll say just generically, I think every learning experience, whether it's a positive one because we did succeed what we were trying to do, or we failed at what we were trying to do, every experience is positive because we learn something. And it's a cliche that you learn more from your failures than from your successes, but I absolutely, you have to fail in order to succeed. You have to fail and learn where you went wrong, where you can be better. If we always succeed, we never realize that we can get better, right? And that's true, obviously, in continuous improvement. We have to look for those things where we have weaknesses, we have mistakes, we have places where things can go wrong, and then many times they do go wrong. So coming out of that loss, obviously, for a while you think about, well, what am I going to do now? And even in the last couple of years, I've thought a lot about what I really want to do. And truthfully, literally in the last couple of months or even couple of weeks, I've realized a big part of what I want to do is learn more myself, but also share with others what are values about, and why should we really have values, and then how do we live those values unconditionally, which is really what my book is about.
Okay, well, that sort of leads me into my next question. So I know that you like to kind of compare and contrast the whole idea between living conditionally and versus unconditionally. So start with just sort of definitions. Like, what does that mean?
Right. So for me, obviously, we all have values, whether we admit it or not, and whether we even realize it or not. We all have values. Some of them we'll admit to, and others we want to hide, maybe. But we have values, and what is the difference between conditional and unconditional is if those values and the way that we behave and the way that we act those values out change based on the circumstances. If they change based on who we come in contact with, how they treat us, how they look, what our chances of success are, then it's unconditional. We aren't acting out those values no matter what. And obviously, unconditional is no matter what the circumstances are, we will do our best to act out those values and to me, as I went through the process of really understanding what I think the most important values are, I came to the realization that it's really important for us to at least strive for unconditionality. We know we'll never be perfect there. We're continuously improving. We're continuously working on ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and unconditional is an ideal for us to strive for. But having that as the ideal means that we can really focus on what are the values that we want to live and want to imbue on our kids, on our friends, on our loved ones, and share with them, no matter what happens. And that's really what I think is a key point that we need to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you often, all of us will, from time to time, even loosely throw around the phrase unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's just a real common phrase that we've
Right.
all heard many, many times.
Right.
But I feel like that's a really profound statement. Unconditional love,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like it's easy to say, but
Right.
you get into raising teenagers, man,
Right.
like I'm in the middle of it,
Right.
and it's tough. I mean, I always love them, but my gosh,
Yeah.
like what were you thinking? Right. So, I mean, talk a little bit more, maybe on the professional side, like
Right.
what does it really mean to have this sort of unconditional, and I don't want to use the word love in the corporate world is difficult, but you know what I'm saying? Like
it is. Well, I'm glad you brought it up. So for me, and that's really where it started, is I really tried to figure out where to go with these values. I was thinking about how do I impart on my kids, and eventually how do I put into a book format the things that I think are important. And for me, it all came back to love. It always starts with unconditional love. That's the foundation of everything else. And I think it even applies at work. It is hard, saying love at work feels icky,
Yeah.
right? And even sometimes, feels inappropriate. But I talk about this in my book, The Unconditionals, that when you really look at it, you have to look at other people, whether they're at work or in your home or across the globe. You have to think about them unconditionally the same way. They're human, right? They deserve the same respect and kindness and compassion as anybody does. So that needs to be what we strive for. And so love is the foundation. And then going from that are the other values that I talk about: gratitude, integrity, accountability, and endeavor. And really, in the workplace, the ones that we probably think about the most are integrity and accountability, and certainly endeavor, which is a longer one. But integrity is, how do we behave when it's hard? When it requires moral courage, right? To step up and stand up for what we believe in. Are we going to depend on these circumstances? With accountability, are we going to wait to see how it's going to work out for us, or
Mm-hmm.
are we going to be accountable and own it no matter what? And that's what really, I think, impacts us in the workplace is, if we're a leader, showing that we're going to stand up and own it no matter what. And the folks that work with us and for us need to see that, because we need to develop that culture.
Yeah. I just Googled it real fast while we were talking to make sure I got my terms right. But what you've been talking about reminds me of, like, I'm a big Thomas Aquinas nerd, and he proposed two types of love, agape and eros, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, or eros, I don't know, E-R-E-S-O-S.
Right.
And so eros is like sort of like that romantic love that you might have for your significant other or something like that. Whereas agape is then sort of that whole idea of willing the best or willing the good of another person, right?
Exactly.
And so, but this agape love is, I think, probably what you're talking about in most
That's
cases.
exactly right.
Right. But it's tough, right? Because you almost have to layer. Well, even even romantic love, you got to put the others before you, right? And wish the best for them and sacrifice for them and so forth. But yeah, it's really interesting just thinking about the roots of what these words mean, because when we say love, it's just so you immediately think of Valentine's Day
Yeah.
and all the rest of it, but it's
Yeah.
much deeper than that, right?
It is. And the word love has so much baggage, right, in our culture. There's so many different ways to look at it and talk about it. But yeah, Thomas Aquinas, I quote in my book, I really dive into what C.S. Lewis talked about. He's got a book, The Four Types of Love, and it really talks through those: romantic love, friendship love, social love. But agape, he brings up the same thing. And that's unconditional love. He calls it God love.
Mm.
Martin Luther King Jr. Talks about agape and unconditional love, and it's really powerful coming from him because he was dealing with a situation where he felt and experienced hate on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
but yet he talked about the importance of us all both experiencing the hate and those who are giving out the hate turning towards unconditional love, and that's really what we should be striving for. So to me, again, that's foundational. But it also, to me, taught me that unconditional, it's not just with love. It's with gratitude. It's with integrity. It's with accountability. Unconditional is really what we should be shooting for.
Yeah.
It's not. We're never going to reach it. It's like driving towards the sun, but you strive for it because when you do that, and this is something that I hadn't thought about until I really wrote the book, it actually makes it easier on us because you can release all of that pressure to figure out, well, how should I act? How should I behave towards this person? How should I behave in this situation? What do I need to give to it? And the fact is, it shouldn't depend on those things. It should depend on what your value is or what your values are. And those things should drive your behavior and your actions. Even when you fall short, you're striving for that.
Yeah. Many people listening are continuous improvement practitioners, and we all know the whole idea of Kaizen, just small incremental changes. Again, just consistently, just keep turning that wheel and things are going to get better. I'm wondering if you could sort of maybe compare and contrast this whole idea of unconditional values and love. And does it mirror the same kind of idea as it pertains to leadership?
I think it does. I actually was listening to the interview you did with James Clear a little while ago, and great interview. I love his book, and I thought he made a great point that really does. In fact, I quote him and his book in my book. It's great, but he talks about the fact that we implement these small habits, these incremental steps toward the type of person we want to be. Right? It's not, we're not shooting for an outcome. We're behaving as the person we want to be. We're behaving as a person who exercises. We're behaving as a person who eats the right things, right? The same is true with the unconditionals. We are behaving consistent with those values. I need to act consistent with integrity, consistent with the unconditional accountability that I want to have in my life. And yeah, I'm not always going to get there, but if I take the steps in that direction and incrementally improve, yesterday I made a mistake, but today I remember that mistake and I'm going to do better, right? Those steps toward the values, toward who you want to be, I think is what behaving with or embodying the unconditionals is about. And the same is true in leadership. We're never going to be perfect leaders. We're going to make mistakes, but we take steps in the direction of the values that we want to embody, the culture that we want to put in place with our teams, the way we want to treat our employees, our teammates, our friends. And those steps will move us in the right direction over time and toward those unconditional values that we think are the ones we should have.
So I want to talk a little bit about just values in general, because, many companies, you go into their place of work and they'll have the big, beautiful poster up on the wall with their, whatever it is, their mottos and their values might be listed out, and integrity and this and that. And sometimes I feel like it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it was done with good intention, but it's kind of like, I'm interacting with these folks over here and I'm not seeing a match, or whatever, like how do we first of all identify values and who should do it, right? For the organization?
Yeah. Well, I do believe that the leaders set the tone. And I talk in the unconditionals about even about mission statements and vision statements where, the leaders are responsible for setting out what are the things that we believe. And I think they should have real, those soft kinds of values like love. I mean, I truly believe that having love in your mission statement as a business is a good move, would convey a message that would be a strong one to the employees. But whether you believe in that or not, integrity, accountability, those things need to be written down, either as those words exactly, or things that are derived from those words. And then clearly what's more important is actually acting those things out. And again,
Mhm.
it may have been the James Clear episode, or another one, where someone on your podcast said, the company culture comes from the habits, comes from the way people behave,
Mhm.
not from what's written down. You can
Mhm.
write it down all you want, but unless your people act it out, and it starts with the leaders. So the leaders show this is what we really believe in by acting that out, and then the people follow suit. And the best cultures I've been in are the ones where um, the employees see the leaders behaving with the kinds of values that they signed up for when they
Yeah.
started, at the company. And therefore the people feel comfortable. They feel like they're aligned. They
Mhm.
feel, like, hey, I can get behind this. And there's a purpose I believe in mission wise, but there's a purpose I believe in just people wise
Yeah.
that I want to support.
Yeah. I love it that you mentioned like, James Clear and these folks, like just the whole idea of like, I'm a big habit person. It's just
Mm-hmm.
sort of how I'm kind of habitual in my life, like
Right.
just sort of get up and follow the same routine. And,
Mm-hmm.
even when it comes to my work is sort of like preparing for a podcast, there's a process, right? And
Yeah.
habit stacking, whatever it might be. And I actually feel like I don't know, at least for me, I don't tell other people how to live their lives, but, like having this sort of consistency of purpose, right? And it can go a long way to, I don't know, having a consistent, stable, hopefully happy life. What do you think?
Exactly. Yeah, stability is a great word for it. It's and I said that in the book too, that unconditional is stable, conditional is unstable. You don't know how you're going to behave. You don't know what's going to happen, because you don't know the circumstance. You
Yeah.
can control your own
Yeah.
circumstance, your own behavior, and therefore you can maintain that stability based on your desire to align with and act along with your values.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just wait to see what happens and then act, yeah, it's going to be unstable, and you're gonna realize you don't have control, and you're not able to um, see things through the way you really want.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Well, hey, this has been a fun conversation. Again, talk a little bit more about the book and where you can get it, and I guess Amazon and all the rest of it.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, so it's called The Unconditionals: 5 Timeless Values to Live Without Limits and Ignite Your Superpower. Actually comes out today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
As we're
so
recording it. So by the time this comes out, it'll be available. Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Okay.
I realize that people will see it a few days from now, but exciting for me. So it's on Amazon, it's on Apple Books, it's on Barnes and Noble. You can get it in physical copy or ebook format, and please check it out. It's I really had a ball writing it, but I'm also super excited to have a little impact on other individuals as they are able to look at things a different way, and maybe really support their values towards unconditionality, and try to impart that in their lives.
I've never published a book. So I'm curious, like, how do you feel on the day that you
Uh,
clicked on Amazon and you saw it, like,
Yeah, well, I think the most real feeling probably is having it in your hand, right?
uh,
Getting the proof copy,
uh-huh.
whether it's from Amazon or somebody else, getting the hardback. I mean, I think everybody who loves books, the
Yeah.
hardback is the ultimate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having the opening it, doing the unboxing video, and but actually having it in your hand,
Yeah.
that's a real moment. But yeah, absolutely, knowing that this day was coming, and knowing that friends and family, and maybe
Mhm.
even eventually people I don't know
Yeah.
will look at the book and read some things that I truly believe in and think can be very impactful on our lives. It's a great feeling.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
On getting it out there. That's fantastic. I look forward to checking it out myself. So
thanks, Ron. I really appreciate that.
Okay. Well, hey, if folks wanted to connect with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, best way is andycrockerbooks.com. Very simple. andycrockerbooks.com and talks about the book, talks about the Unconditionals a little bit. But that's a great way to connect, and you can go to contacts and reach out to me directly. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, yeah, and we'll get it all linked up here in the show notes, so everybody just scroll down on whatever you're listening to and go connect with Andy. All right. Well, hey, thanks again, and this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Ron, I really appreciate it. Really have enjoyed your podcast and excited to be on. So thanks so much.
All right, take care. Thanks for listening. Whether you've been on the continuous improvement journey for many years, or perhaps you're just getting started, Gemba Academy is here to support you. And while we're best known for our more than 1,500 Lean and Six Sigma teaching and virtual tour videos, we also have a team of experienced Lean and Six Sigma practitioners available for one-on-one coaching, as well as a variety of Lean and Six Sigma certification options. To learn more and to schedule a demo, head on over to gembaacademy.com.